Welcome to today's video. Today, we're going to talk about something that I witness with a lot of business owners I talk to. And I myself have been guilty of this because we have built our businesses on being the expert. So we're the ones for a very long time who did everything, including all of the client delivery work. So when we do that, we're the ones basically who are in charge of it all. And we probably remember those days as you're now building your teams. Our roles change as our team grows. But we still don't want to lose that care, that competence, and those high standards that we put into the product that we deliver to our clients. And when we're making that transition from the lead technician into the business leader, there are some things that sometimes we don't learn these things just naturally. I don't think all the time. Maybe you did, and that's fine. I know I myself didn't and have gone through this all myself, and a lot of my clients and people, business owners I talk to, have the same sort of mindsets here. So we're going to talk about a few of those things because delegation can become a struggle when we're looking at how do we get our own care and competence and high standards out of our minds and into the team's mind so that they can deliver to the standard that we would like them to. If we haven't met yet, I'm Chris. I have 20 years of B2B business ownership and consulting under my belt. It's my mission to help small business owners master delegation and leadership in their businesses so that you can have the time you need to do the things you want to do. So with that, let's get into it. First of all, let's look at what a normal Tuesday might look like for you. I know I've had these Tuesdays myself back when in my agency days. So you get a request from a client. It's urgent. They need it today. This request is coming to you. And you think to yourself, oh man, like my team is so busy right now. I don't know that they have time to do this thing. It's probably better if I just do it. So you take that thing and you do it yourself. I imagine that you have done this multiple times. I know I have done this multiple times, and we're really missing out on some opportunities here when this happens. So that's what I want to talk about today, because what we're really kind of teaching people with these habits is that the hard work belongs to you. So if something is urgent or something is difficult, you are the one who will handle it. If there's a quality question that is kind of out there, then that belongs to you. You are the one who solves those quality problems. Or maybe decisions get back to you too, because you are the one who takes all of those things on, but you don't always share how or why you're making the decisions that you're making. Totally normal things, by the way, as we're learning how to get these things out of our minds and what is important for the team to know. So these are 3 different patterns. They all come with a fix, which I'm going to tell you about in this video. So we have these 3 strengths. We have care, competence, and standards, which of course is what we built our business on as an expert in our field. For me, it was graphic design and marketing. And so I was the one who did the delivery on that for a very long time. And that's how I started my business, and people got to know like it was great quality. It was reliable. We were reliable. We did an excellent job. As we're building a team though, sometimes these delegation problems start with those best qualities of ours because we kind of hold on to them. And then what happens is we limit the business's growth at that point because we feel like we have to keep these things with us. And that's where these 3 mindsets kind of hold us back, because when we get into care, we're really looking at protection. When we look at competence, we're really looking at rescue. And when we're looking at standards, we're really looking at holding on to some of those private rules. None of these things are on purpose. It's just because we've always been the one to do these things. I'm going to show you how to fix this. So first of all, we have our strength of care, where sometimes the support that we provide becomes deciding. So as business owners and leaders, we're paying attention to workloads. We're noticing when our team is maybe stretched a little bit thin. That's something we feel like we don't want. You want people to be treated fairly in the business, and you want to create a workplace and a culture that people want to stay in. And so what happens is we end up absorbing that work instead of adding a task to somebody because we feel like that's going to like add stress to their week or stress to their day. And I think this is still good leadership, but we can upgrade from here. You probably have done this yourself. You're telling yourself things like, "Oh, they have enough on their plates. I don't want to burden them with this." Or maybe you feel like the work is kind of tedious or boring. It might be for you. It might not be for them. And this one, I think, is the one I hear the most is it's faster if I do it. So I imagine you've had this thought yourself before. So when we're feeling guilty about assigning these extra requests, we're making some assumptions about like capacity or making assumptions about what people enjoy doing. PS, we're not always going to enjoy our jobs. That's just quite simply not possible. But what happens here is the team loses out on quite a bit of things if we're leaning into these habits. So what the team loses are things like open conversations about capacity. So if we're making assumptions about the owners and about the owner, we're not having the conversations. We're kind of telling ourselves our own story. And in reality, it might not be what we think it is. So having those open conversations is really powerful. Having a chance to reprioritize together. So you can now be teaching your team your thinking when it comes to reprioritizing work. And you'll find over time that as you do this, they will then take that skill on and be able to do it in their own work as well. We're limiting exposure to harder work. So, what we're doing is we're holding back training opportunities from our team to take on more of that responsibility and give them room to start building judgment, building decision making capacity so that that can come away from you. And we're also limiting a fuller ownership. From your team to own the work. And I think this is a really important piece. It's kind of like the overarching theme in this particular area is we care so much, but we're really limiting the growth opportunities and limiting that ownership, which in the long term does not help you get more time in your. So what happens is protecting the team through care turns into deciding for your team, and that actually is a way to prevent yourself from scaling because those are still, you're just training people that's always going to be something that you do. There's a great question here to ask yourself if you feel like you might be kind of in this area in your business. Are you protecting people from real pressure or are you just avoiding some ordinary discomfort? We all know that we need some discomfort to grow, discomfort for you from letting things go or learning how to delegate and share these standards with your team, and discomfort for your team too. Like they need to be a little bit uncomfortable at the same time so they can be learning things. And I would say like responsibly uncomfortable. I wouldn't say just throw people into the fire and hope for the best. That's actually what we're trying to avoid here in this conversation today. We just want to make sure that we're providing great guidance, but also allowing for some of that growth to happen from both you and the team member as well. Our next strength is competence, where solving becomes rescuing. So maybe you are guilty of this as well. You have a good intention though. And your good intention is that you're experienced and fast. You see the problem right away. And of course you do. And of course you are, because you're the one who's been doing this and you know kind of every nuance of those types of scenarios. So what happens is you correct the file, you handle the client, you make the call, maybe you're protecting that deadline. And what you feel like you're doing is that you're protecting that one small issue from turning into something larger. And you think, this is my rescuing. I'm going to take care of this for the team. It's actually really hard to give up because it works. Every rescue is providing that immediate evidence. So we're really getting that quick dopamine hit, like, yeah, I solved this problem. I'm the hero. And so what happens is great. The client's relieved. The deadline is fine. The error, poof, it's gone. Your team is like, oh, thank you. Like you came to my rescue again. And you've made a visible difference in the immediate. So, things like, the deadline is managed, errors gone, team's grateful. Great. So you're checking those immediate boxes off. But we really want to be thinking longer term here because every rescue that's solving today's problem is leaving the business exactly where it is, which means your inbox is still full. You're still getting pings at 9 o'clock at night. You're still staying up late trying to keep up to, catch up to what you wanted to accomplish today so you can just start all over again tomorrow. We're staying stuck when we're doing the rescuing. And I think that's a really important point to make. So, for example, if an owner is putting somebody into the work, maybe they're watching that person do the work and then they step in and just correct it without sharing what they're doing and why, then maybe I've seen this too, owners spending weeks correcting a large client file. So these problems can be big or small, but really what happened is these expectations were not set up from the beginning. And that's why rescuing feels so good, because we're the ones who feel like we have the competence to fix the problem, but really we're just kind of holding ourselves back long term. So again, that rescue is protecting today's result, but it's teaching, when you teach the thing, it's protecting the next round again and again and again. You then get more time. So that's what we're trying to obviously, of course, accomplish here. The question we want to ask ourselves here is, who learned that lesson? Because sometimes you do need to step in, and this becomes a spectrum of what's the risk? What's the teaching moment? How fast does this have to happen? Am I truly the only one who can help with this issue? Because some of these risks that you walk into might be real. Like maybe the deadline really was very last minute, and maybe the team really was over tasked or whatever it might be. So yes, there are times when you need to step in, but I think what we really want to do here is we want to pay attention to when those teaching moments are, and start airing more into that discomfort side as opposed to just jumping in and doing the rescue. Take the time to do this work, and it will pay off for you in the future. And again, if something truly is urgent, of course, you should be jumping in and helping the team. I'm not suggesting that you don't. I'm just saying there's opportunities where you can set yourself up for future success in the moment. Your reputation as the expert person who built your business and did a lot of the client work in the beginning. So your reputation was built on that quality that you delivered. That's how you got the business to the point that it is today. It's how you're able to build your team. You've, validated your product. You have the systems in place, generally speaking, to like bring the clients in and do the work. So, you're noticing things like tone, timing, risk, and even undocumented client preferences, which are probably in your mind. The technical exceptions, most likely, and the difference between just simply being acceptable and being excellent. And again, these are things that you built your business on. So they're important to you because your reputation is important to you, and as it should be. And so sometimes what we do is we keep things like the unwritten expectations. We keep things like calculating risk, and we keep things like, how do we actually exceed expectations? We're not communicating that necessarily, because it actually can be really hard to communicate that, especially if we're deep within the other two habits where we're just like rescuing and fixing as we go, or protecting as we go. So, when things are getting assigned in your business, you really want to make sure that you're not only assigning the work, but you're assigning the standard that goes along with it. Trickier than it sounds, because sometimes it is difficult for us to understand what that is. And a lot of these unwritten expectation or exceptions are things like risk calculation. Like it may be that you're the one who has to calculate the risk, and probably should be in most cases. Or, the definition of really what that high caliber work is that you have been providing to your clients. You want your team to be able to do that. And maybe you feel like they're not doing that. And everything that's going out the door is something that matters to you, because not only now are you making sure that you are supporting your own livelihood, you're supporting your team's livelihood as well. And you're paying the bills, and you're doing the things, and that can be a lot of pressure. And so we hold on to some of these things without realizing that we're holding on to them, especially when it comes to standards. You spent a lot of time developing these things. So it's certainly not an overnight expectation that you can pull these things out and deliver, download them onto your team, but there are ways to do it. So I remember talking to one of my clients, and they said that, they expressed, why can't I just tell them? Why can't I just give them the goal and just let them get there? And so basically they were wanting their team to go from like A to Z without really filling in any of the middle letters of that alphabet. But then they also recognize that what details could they even handle automatically without ever explaining them or writing them down. So there was a tension there between, why don't they get it? But also, oh, it's hard work for me to pull this out of my brain and show the team how I want this thing done. And that's when we get back into the habits of much easier for me to do it and that sort of thing. So just some patterns to definitely keep an eye on, because even though these three things are slightly different, they are certainly all intertwined with one another. Another item I've seen owners struggle with letting go of is client communications. In many cases, the clients have been with the owner since the very beginning, or new clients have been with the owner through the sales process and possibly the onboarding process and things like that. And so then they feel like there's that relationship that they really need to manage, and they have a hard time letting go of that. There are ways to do that, to, train your team and train your clients in making you the person at the point of escalation as opposed to the day to day. So it can be done. You just want to, again, make sure that you are communicating those standards to both sides in that point and helping people understand how to communicate together. I think that the high standards can get kind of restrictive, especially if they're used as a way to find the wrong thing. It will happen. And when we see that, though, what we should be doing is not panicking about it. We should just like, oh, in the system of the business, there's a piece of information missing. And if we can fill that piece of information in, then we can document those standards and communicate them and make sure that the team is learning how to implement those as you go. Really important question that we're asking ourselves in this case, really nice and simple. Do they know the standard before they start? And if the answer is no, then it is your job to make sure that they do know what that standard is. And I, again, would say, like, it's really important to have a two-way conversation here. It can't be just like, here's the standard, go do it. There needs to be a dialogue and a conversation to ensure that understanding, because your team member knows a lot more about their job than you do when it comes to working, that ground level. At least that's the way it should be. If you know every single thing about their job, then how do you have time to run your business? So you got to build that trust, and you got to let them do their jobs as well. And so that means that they're going to have more knowledge. And if you have that back and forth conversation, you're going to learn a lot about the nuance of their job as well. And they're going to learn about yours. And then you'll be able to meet in the middle and make sure that those stand. So here are the patterns. If you are noticing that supporting your people becomes deciding for them, or if you're noticing that solving hard problems becomes a rescue mission, or if you're noticing that protecting the quality really means keeping the standards to yourself, those are things for you to notice. Now, what this means, though, it doesn't mean you care less. It doesn't mean you become less capable, and it doesn't mean you lower your standards. It just means you're sharing those things. And it really calls to build those skills within the business through you to your team, so that you don't have to personally supply them every single time, which is what is keeping your inbox busy, which is what is keeping you and your client work, and what is keeping you from having more time to do the things you want to do in your business, like build your business, like networking. Maybe you just want to have a vacation. Maybe you just want to go outside and walk the dog. I know I had a good friend mention that to me. And so it can be big things or little things. But if you're feeling like you can't do some of those things, if you're able to spot these patterns and then mitigate them, then you will absolutely have more time in your business. I 100% promise you that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to build instead. We're going to have those capacity conversations. We're going to ask what's on people's plates. We're actually going to help reprioritize and do it together so that you can transfer those skills and your expectations. We're going to name the support that makes it workable. And then that way you will find that your team will come to you as well and say, hey, I have capacity here, or I have, I'm able to take more on, or you'll be able to pass something over, and you'll just notice it gets done to your standard, which is a wonderful, magical thing. We're going to teach after we step in and before we step in if we can as well. But what you don't want to do is just fix the work and move on. If you did a fix, that's fine, but you want to share what you did and why you did it, and some of the learning behind that, and depending on how technical your job is. So for example, if you are an accountant, there's probably some rules and some good knowledge to share in those different areas. And maybe your team member is not an accountant, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't understand the rules behind why you're doing the things that they do. And I have seen this firsthand, where the team member wanted to take on more and have the knowledge. And once that was expressed, well, boom, the floodgates opened. And suddenly I was able to take that business owner out of the loop of correcting the work. And then what happened is the team member was able to take on a lot more. The team member was a lot happier. Of course, the owner was a lot happier. And even a year later, after working with this client, I did check in with them, and they said that they have so much more time now, and everybody has built a wonderful amount of trust, and that they are able to do their jobs and to a satisfying manner, which is really great. We all want that, I think, in our workplaces. We also want to write our standards down. So we need that visible guidance. These things can be a lot of different items. So you can have an example of really great work that has been completed. You can have decision criteria, maps, and rules, and that sort of thing. You can define things like tone and things like that. If you're looking at client communications, you can see like, okay, when is something actually completed? What is the start and end of XYZ in these processes? I'm a big fan of that. In my community, high return leadership, I do have an SOP training in there that goes over all of that, which is wonderful. Um, how, you can also document like when does something actually get escalated to you. And as the team learns those boundaries, you'll see them flex and grow over time as well. And you want to have that quality conversation before a deadline and not after. So that does mean sometimes like you are checking in with the team to make sure that you are supporting them. And if they have any questions, they can ask them and you can do those things. And you're going to get a lot of ahead of a lot of problems that way as well. So, the very quick overview, we're going to ask, not absorb. We're going to teach, not rescue. We're going to write it down instead of just managing it. And, if there's any takeaway from this particular video, I would say that this is it. One last question for you. I love these reflection questions. Thinking about what is the hardest thing for you to let go. And I've heard all sorts of things and I've given you some examples in this video. I'd love to hear what you're struggling with letting go of. And it's definitely not like, it's not a bad thing that we hold on to these things. It's just learning a new skill as we move from being the lead technician or client delivery person into leading through our teams and having the team doing the client delivery to the standard that you would like them to do that with. It takes some time. It takes some time for you to learn those skills. It takes some time for them to understand what it is that you're asking for. But I promise you, if you look at these 3 different areas and you are working on them consecutively, you will find that you end up having more time. You're still an excellent business owner. No one is ever questioning that. But now as a bonus, you have that space to do the things that you want to do and to build that business that you always dreamed of building when you first opened your doors. If you're working on building your business, especially if you started it as an expert, I invite you to join my free community, High Return Leadership. This is where we work on all sorts of things like this. The link is in the description. I'd love to see you there. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.